Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Creators Podcast. This is the official kickoff to season 2. It is an honor to, first of all, just get to do another season of the show, and I'm especially excited to be kicking it off with the 2 guests that I have today. These are 2 of my original guests to the show, and also just 2 pillars of the creative community in the Birmingham area. Today, I have Sean Patrick Kirby and John Champion. These 2 men have been widely respected by so many across the creative industry, especially in the Birmingham area, not just for the work that they do, but for the people that they are. And it is truly an honor to share this conversation with you now. Check it out. Thank you both, seriously, for, first of all, when I first started Creating Careers Podcast in this format, the 2 of you, sort of still not making sense to me, even at this point, the 2 of you agreed to talk with me. And I appreciate that, because the credibility that the 2 of you gave this podcast right off the bat was incredible. I mean, so many people agreed to talk with me in part, a large part, because I had spoken with the 2 of you. Just your reputation in the Birmingham creative community is definitely up there at the top, and just the kindness that both of you extended to me to be willing to talk. I truly appreciate it. Seriously.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, now y'all can sort of gloat about yourself and how amazing you are, but no. So, but seriously, it was great. And Sean, I've got to pay specific respect to you. You brought up something that at the time I don't think I fully understood or respected. You talked about the difference between a content creator or videographer and like a cinematographer. And at the time, I think my response to you was, well, words don't really matter to me. And I don't think that was the most respectful response that I could have given to you. And since then, just after talking with more and more cinematographers, filmmakers, and people that have literally brought that statement up out of respect for the very same sentiment, I've learned to value and appreciate and distinguish between those lines of work. So I appreciate your grace at the time. You said that, and my response, like I said, wasn't that great, but you handled it and took it with grace, and then extended me a lot of forgiveness and room and latitude to sort of err in some way. So I appreciate y'all both, seriously.
Yeah, man. Kirby's just the camera guy, you know. That's what we call him.
That's true. Just the camera guy.
Thank you, John.
Okay. I want to start this out in one way. Because I would imagine there may be some people that don't know the 2 of you, or maybe that haven't watched previous episodes of this or other podcasts that maybe y'all have been on. And so I would love to hear how you would describe each other. Rather than one of you saying what you do, I want to hear you describe the other person, and we'll get into sort of y'all's history and working together in the past, maybe even in current projects. But I want to hear first, Sean, you want to start with telling us who is John Champion?
Yeah, John Champion is I think someone who accidentally got in this business, but like a lot of us. There are all these things, these parts and pieces of us that make us really good at this job. And I think John has a lot of that. He's a problem solver. He looks at the job, and I think there are 2 kinds of people that work in this business for the most part. There are technicians, and then there are artists. And I think that John, though his role is a gaffer, which is the chief lighting technician, those roles, a gaffer on paper would look like that's just a technical part of the job. I think that the good ones, nay, even the best ones in the business, best gaffers in the business, come come at it from an artistic standpoint. So I think John, I would put him in that category of someone who's technically proficient, but goes at it from an artistic standpoint, which I think is always a large strength for any production to have on their team, is a gaffer who who's not only collaborative but also brings his own special sauce to the table. I've known John since 2012 or 2013. We have worked thousands of hours together, maybe. I'm not sure. But I would say like we've been in the trenches together. And that's another thing that is a great quality that you want in a leader, is someone who's been there and knows what the ask is, and knows how to do it the right way, but also if you need to do it the wrong way, can do it in a way that's still safe. And then like he's just a good boss. He's a good dude. He's a good friend. It's a good cook.
Okay. Now,
yeah, he's a good dude.
what is it? What's his specialty? What does he really cook?
I mean, I think John can cook anything. Here's the thing about John Champion is that he can get a little obsessive and really dive into specific niche things, and then really want to take. It's almost like it's like someone like a tinkerer, or someone who just like gets a puzzle, and they're just like, I want to really understand why and how this puzzle works, and I'm going to break it down, and then I'm going to make puzzles. And I'm going to make puzzles that might be better than this puzzle. And I think that that's kind of how it is. So I'd say, what does he cook? I mean, kind of whatever he wants to, because he's going to like dive into it and figure out how and why, just like you would on set. I think there's a lot of parallels between that kind of world of like making things with your hands and cooking, and it's communal and it is collaborative in a lot of respects. I think there's probably a decent parallel that someone could draw between the two industries.
And is that something, John, that you're exploring more of, as being a chef, or are you a grill master, or are you more of in the kitchen?
I am not exploring that as a.
That's not an exploration. I'm just saying.
I think the other side of me likes making money, so I don't think I could ever do that. No, it's a passion for sure. Done it my whole life. I cooked with my mom growing up, so cooking is something I do almost every day. And I do nerd out.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good descriptor of myself, I feel like. So, yeah.
I feel like quite a few, and I don't know if this is like a male versus female thing, but it seems like at least a lot of the men in my life tend to do that very thing, like hone in on something for a period of time and get super obsessed with it. And grilling can be one of those things for some people. I mean, I've seen obviously people do it with sports and things like that, but it seemed, or maybe woodworking, like some type of hobby. Men oftentimes, I feel like, just go all in on it. But this sounds like this is like a lifelong thing that you've been doing.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get some water.
Yeah.
I have, I've cooked my whole life. I literally grew up cooking with my mom as a kid. She cooked almost every day of our life, and we do the same in our house. My wife cooks too. I'm sure not just me, but
yeah.
I would like to like caveat or put an asterisk there. Like, it's just not like John and food and film. Like, it's more of like, I know John in his previous career before he got in this business was good with concrete and pouring, and John is very handy. And like, I think that more of saying like there is an interesting part of a person, especially in this business, who can succeed well and get hired a lot, is someone who is inquisitive and curious. So maybe that's a better descriptor, is there's a curiosity there that I think like helps ask the question, like, why this, why do it this way? And I think that that's something that he has inside of him. And I think it will always be a good marker of a good maker.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like parallels, I think, with, you know, I think there's younger guys in the industry would probably like follow the recipe, right? If they're cooking, they're going to follow the recipe. If they're lighting, they're going to follow the recipe, right? I've seen somebody else do this exact thing. I'm going to try to do this exact thing. But I'm personally like a person who tends to not follow a recipe. I'll watch other people do things and learn from those things, but I'm not necessarily just going to recreate the same thing I've seen before. I want to understand how it works and why it works that way so I can implement it when I see that it's necessary. And you kind of learn the fundamentals. Same with cooking. Once you learn how to cook, you don't need a recipe. You just see what ingredients you have and you make it. And I think the same is true when it comes to lighting stuff or problem solving on set. You kind of see what you have and what needs to be done. And if you really know the art and the craft of it, you can do it in any situation.
No, I've said this to students when I was in the classroom teaching. I've encouraged students to copy and imitate people, because I would tell them, like, you're gonna copy and imitate this person, and then you're gonna copy and imitate this person, and eventually you're gonna start meshing those two influences into something new, something fresh. And it sounds like to me like you're at the point now, and I would expect many people eventually the goal is to get to this point where you're everything you do now is sort of like you understand the rules, you understand the concepts, but now you can bend those and move those, manipulate those sort of outside of the norm. How important would you say it is for people to imitate or copy, or would you say, no, you really shouldn't, like you really need to get original as soon as possible?
I mean, from a technical standpoint, there's technical ways to learn how to do things. Everything has a proper way to do it, right? And you should imitate those technical practices and implement those into your everyday work life. So I think from that perspective, yes, learn the proper way that things that should be done. But, with lighting specifically, there's not really that. It's taste driven. It's not, it's not A plus B equals C. It is very much taste driven according to what the project calls for, what the director of photography is asking for, what the director wants it. So all those things are so taste driven and so location dependent and crew dependent and equipment dependent. So there's so many variables within that copying like style, I would say, is probably not a great idea in the sense of frame by frame type things. But if you see something you like, other people's work that you like, of course, you're going to be inspired by that work. It's going to give you ideas on things you may want to implement. But I think copying the technical side of things is where I would lean towards for people, like learn the right way to do it and start there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that, you put the cart before the horse if you just are like, I want to copy this. I think I agree with Champ. Like, technically speaking, you should learn the proper ways to do things because they're safe and they're efficient and they are easily translatable across the world. So you can go anywhere in any city and say, these are the things that I want to do. This is the equipment I want to use, and that should be a one-to-one. But when it comes to implementation, I think that we are always going to be a product of our experiences. Artistically speaking, we're always going to have influences that stylistically we're going to have things that like do influence us. But I would always, I always want to say kind of what Champ says. It's when it comes to what you're trying to do lighting wise, this is something I hate is people wanting cheat codes. When someone asks Roger Deakins, hey, in True Grit, how did you like this scene with Jeff Bridges? And it's like, I mean, he can tell you I used, 15 fill in the blanks and like he can give you the list, but the thing that changes between person to person is my experience is not your experience or Champ's experience. Like, we all have our unique and individual things, and it is about more of creating a taste and a vibe and a feeling when it comes to lighting and camera. And so as a DP, you can be like, I want to copy this, or this is my inspiration. But I think that you should give yourself the freedom of experimentation and finding your voice. I think it's very important to find your own voice first before you just start doing that. Because I think Champo and I have been a part of this. You get on a job that doesn't have any money, but those people don't give a rip about that because they've got this inspo from Blade Runner. And it's like, and I want to shoot Blade Runner. And it's like, we don't have rain and neon and an alley and all this. We are in a black box studio. So it's like,
Yeah.
You can be inspired by stuff. I'm inspired by almost everything. You can be inspired, but you still need to like find your voice. Like John said, learn the right ways, learn the different lights, learn what shapes those lights, learn that, but also don't bring a sheet to set and be like, here's what I want to do. And then you show it to people on the day and they're like, this is not possible based on the project. So I think that idea of like the thing that I get mad about a cheat code is people think that if I just know the gear and I know the movie, like A plus B equals C, like, oh, this is what they used and this is the frame. So if I just throw all this stuff at the picture, it should equal this. And you will always be disappointed because you're not Roger Deakins. I'm not Roger Deakins and I don't want to be. I just want to be me.
Yeah.
Everyone should just want to be themselves.
I think creativity ultimately is like a level of problem solving. You know, like you describe this idea of like, here's the inspiration, but look at the context of where you are and the tools and atmosphere and people that you're working with. How can you still sort of somehow pull the essence of your inspiration, but apply it to the context of your situation? And now you've got something new, fresh, still maybe following some of the general best practices, but at the same time, creatively implementing those two things together. And that sounds like sort of where I guess professionalism ends up getting to at some point in this kind of work.
Yeah, I think, most of the work that I do and Curb too is primarily location based shooting. And so, you can either fight what's naturally happening, but in order to do that, you just have to have so much equipment and so many people to like completely reshape what's naturally happening. Or you can learn how to embrace those things and where to put the camera to do that, and I think that's ultimately the most important thing is, okay, where's the camera going to go? What's it seeing? Where are the actors going to be? What's their blocking and what is the room doing? And how can we use this space to our advantage? I see people fight that all the time, where they don't see it creatively enough to problem solve around that. Any good DP thinks through all the coverage and knows it in his head without having to put a lens up and figure out, they can see it with their eye and they can see what the light's doing with their eye. And they typically light by eye. They may use meters and things for certain things, but guys that have been doing it for a long time, and Kirby is certainly this way, can see something, can see what lens, what lighting, ratios, all those things in their eyes. And it goes a long way because they're able to kind of head off problems that you might encounter 3 setups, 4 setups in, where you're like, oh no, we have to turn around and we're screwed because of this or that. So
yeah, there's like a secret, like I feel like I get like a secret high when you get in this flow state of shooting where you walk into a room, you're like, I already know how I'm going to do this. Actually, let's go ahead and advance stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I like that to be able, like yes, I would say a lot of it is like your problem solving. You're always doing that though. And I think that it is always about like, yes, like when you walk into a location, like I think I read like an ASCDP said one time, he's like, the first thing I do is I just turn the lights off and see what it's doing. And I do that. I practice that all the time. And I think there's more oftentimes than not. And it's probably because of shared trauma that John and I have of being like, there's no reason to do all this stuff, right? Like, I think that, and this is something that I'm very big on, and I probably lost work from it, but I don't really care, is just because your name on the call sheet says that it's DP, gaffer, fill in the blank. Just because it says that doesn't mean that you have to do something every time. It doesn't mean you have to justify your role or your pay. You don't have to be like, I am here now. It is time to paint with light. It's like, no. Like sometimes you're like, I think this looks pretty good. We should just shoot it.
Hmm.
And often, sometimes that's a little wary. I remember Champo and I did a job a long time ago, and I was DPing it, and we had this producer was like, it's going to be a day exterior. So, what do you need? Like a 20 by? It's huge field. And I have very strong opinions about overheads. And I was like, no, I'm not going to use an overhead. And he's like, why not? And I was like, because I don't want to. And it just blew his mind. I was like, look, we'll move faster. Like, I was like, these are the reasons why. Like, I don't need to tell you this, but I can tell you this. And he was just like, oh, I just don't never see anyone do that. And I'm like, well, that's because I have done stupid stuff, and I know that once again, we don't have the manpower to do it the right way. So maybe if you don't have the stuff to do it the right way, don't do anything and just start there and see how that goes from there.
Yeah.
And restraint and simplicity is a strength. It is a good tool to have in your pocket. It is not restraining yourself and not doing a bunch of stuff is just as much of a choice and a decision as it is to puke the truck.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think whenever it comes to lighting, especially if you're, like you said earlier, if your job is gaffer and on the call sheet, that's not just about the gear you bring, but the vision you bring, the knowledge you bring, and if the knowledge says we don't need anything, then that's just as valuable as grabbing every single thing out of the truck and setting it up because it was needed, So yeah, that's cool. And this is coming from somebody who experience on set is like none. So, but I can imagine. And thankfully, I've been able to talk with a few people to hear their experience. But all right, so John, we did it one way. Now let's do it the other. You tell us, who is Sean Patrick Kirby? Which let me preface. He's like, bring it. There's a lot of Sean Kirby's. I know whenever he and I talked, it's incredible the number of people. So I'm curious to know if John, you've ever run into some of these others, but let's focus on one right now and let's talk about who is the real Sean Patrick Kirby.
Yeah. I just know him as Kirby, and I think that's enough. But
yeah,
Kirby is first and foremost is a friend to me and to a lot of folks in the industry. We can get into our history later, but we have done a ton of things together, and we have a ton of experiences, shared life experiences together. We were neighbors for years, close family friends. So he's a dear friend. He's a great man and a great father to his kids. Just a really good guy. I think Kirby is a little rough around the edges, which I think makes him as good as he is. And I think some people, if they don't know Kirby, might feel differently. But when you know him, you know that he is genuinely a good human and thinks deeply about a lot of things in life. And that translates into his work. He thinks very deeply about his work. He doesn't do anything just to do it. He is inspired, like he said earlier, by a lot of things, and that comes off when you work with him. He's always trying to push the limit. I would say artistically of the work that he does, which is refreshing. There's so many people that phone things in, or they try to do too much because they really haven't given it too much thought. But Kirby's a deep feeler as a person, so he feels things first, which means then in his work he's always asking those things. Well, how should this feel? What should this feel like? What's the motivation for these things? Which translates into where the camera goes, into what kind of lighting we're going to do, into the movement of the camera. All those things are super important. And if you ask any good director, those are the bits and pieces that really translate emotion through visuals. And Kirby gets that, and he lives that. Like, he feels things like that. And when it comes to his work, I think he's just a joy to work with because of that. Like, if I ever do a shoot with Kirby, I know, like, we're going to do fun things. Like, we're going to get to explore a bit, which I always enjoy doing. It's not just going to be do the same thing we did on the last one. It's going to be, can be more challenging, I think, in that standpoint, to think through things, to prepare, to talk through things beforehand and bounce ideas off each other. So it's just fun, and I think if you've done this job for any amount of time and you're good at what you do, you enjoy challenges. You enjoy doing things that are challenging, not just like physically, like this is hard work, but mentally, like how do we solve this problem together? How can we figure out what we need to do? And Curb's just always been really good at that. I think the other strength that he has is he worked as a grip and a key grip for years, which brings a unique perspective to crew, and also just to lighting in general and camera movement and all the things, because he's done it all. He's done all the things that he's asking you to do. He's been there and done a lot of those same things. So I just enjoy any job we get to do together. I look forward to them because they're going to be fun. We're going to enjoy our time and we're going to get to play a little bit, And he's not stuck with using the same things. He's always open to using, because lighting and things, and there's so many different, especially nowadays, like every month something new. Technology is obviously driving a lot of this stuff, so it's evolving month to month. And Kirby's always open to, like, yeah, let's try a different kind of screwdriver here. Let's try a different tool and see what it does, and open to learning, which is great.
I think that every time I call John for a job, which is I try every time that he's available, he's like, hey, I've got this thing. I'm like, yes, bring it. Like, yeah, I just always, because it's always just, I think there has to be a bit of curiosity and playfulness to this, right? Like, it's serious. It's a serious job. People, it's, you got to keep people safe. Time is money, all that stuff. But there also should be, like, I agree with John. I do not like repetition. I do not like the mundanity of, like, bring the same things everywhere, every time. We're going to, like, if it's an interview, I'm like, oh, can we just try another way? Mm-hmm. Just because, like, my brain, I don't know why, like, it's just really, really hard. But at the same time, like, say, for instance, if you're on a feature and you're having to shoot the same scene days later, well, then that makes sense. We got to keep it consistent. But, like, if we're going back to that room for the third time, then I want to maybe change the time of day, or maybe I want to change the angle of something, or, do different, because there's something playful about trying to explore and find that.
How important do you think it is? Well, let me preface this question with this. Based on John's sort of description of Sean, I would say it sounds like the phrase or the term intellectual sort of comes to mind. And sorry, not to gloat on you too much, but I mean, I think it's something when somebody's really reflective or sort of feels a lot also, in addition to being reflective, that's sort of what resonates with me. is I mean, I've had friends that I would classify as intellectuals and people that just they're never satisfied with just knowing a little or feeling a little, like they want to take that further and further. How important is that in the work you do? I mean, how important is it to, like, especially thinking of like feeling and then wanting to understand that or tap into that even further?
It's a good question. And John Champion, thank you so much for the kind thing that will be put on my tombstone verbatim. It'll be a very
It's
tall
a
one.
big tombstone.
That's how I want to go, baby. I think that it's definitely project specific. I mean, like if you're selling shoes, the overall vibe that you're trying to do with someone selling shoes is, look how cool these shoes are. You want to wear them, right? So like,
Feel
there's
all
like,
that emotion.
I definitely think that there's a range of projects, where sometimes it's pretty straightforward, and I think that you still have to access some sort of thing of like why. I think that it's just why. Just ask the why, and you don't have to ask everybody. You can ask yourself. It can be intrinsic. It can be why. And I think like starting with why, like it kind of informs so much. Like, why do we like this way? Why does the camera move? Why are we doing this? And I think like, I always am going to try to mine something. When I'm in a narrative place, when I'm in a doing narrative work, yeah, I mean, it's all about feeling. It's all about trying to figure out like, where's the character at? Where's the character going? Where have they been? Where are we? It's just a lot of questions. And I don't necessarily think that you need to ask those people questions. I think it's a lot of questions you ask yourself and you inform. And, like I will pull from personal experiences. And I always just tell people when they ask me like, how do you be a DP? How do you do that? And I'm like, listen, we live in an age where it's very simple to take 30,000 pictures, right? We are constantly bombarded with visuals, um, especially visuals that are curated and made, to present something, and not to sound like a Luddite, but I am just very intrigued, especially as I get older and I see more and more screens permeate our world. I definitely am curious about just real life experience and community and being with people and living in the world and traveling, and telling people like, hey, like, not touch grass because that's such like an overblown phrase, but like this idea of like engage in the physical realm that you live in, go do things. Because I would say like the majority of any of the narrative work that I've done, um, I'm always pulling from my past, and I'm pulling from a feeling of. I did Champo. This is a good example. Champo and I did a very long form commercial a few years back, and it was kind of a unicorn in the fact that we had a very nice budget, and we had time, and we had people, and so we kind of got to play for a while, which once again like led to fun experiments and lighting experiments and camera movement. But one of the shots that we did is kind of like, I know it's going to sound silly, it's kind of almost a throwaway, but it was about a little baby in a that had just been born. That was like, it was like a hospital adjacent thing, and I had taken a picture of my daughter when she was like 2 days old in her little bassinet with her little hand up, and I just was very moved by that photo of my child. Just that new life, and it's backlit and it feels hopeful and all. It just has like there's something about, life kind of grasping forth. So anyway, we're shooting this thing, and it's like we're shooting a mom with her newborn. And I told the director, I was like, I'm going to shoot this shot of the baby in the bassinet like my daughter. Like I I know it, and I'm drawing from my personal experience and what I saw and doing it for this. And it's probably in the edit. And I think I fought as a DP. I fought for that. I was like, you put that freaking shot in there. I was like, it's a good shot. It works. It's hopeful. I was like, here's the reasons why. And it probably is on the screen for 0.2 seconds. But even like where it's paced in the edit, like I'm like, it works. And I think that's kind of what I mean is like, yes, even though I did take a photo of it, but just like seeing it and being there and like existing and feeling like, I think that it's very simple. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling or ranting. It's very simple in today's storytelling universe that we live in, about being clinical and sharp and technical and like boom, 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 very precise precision. And I don't shy away from that. I think I love an image that has purpose. But I think that there is a little humanity lost when we are just striving for perfection, for like this like robotic camera and this clinical lighting. And I kind of buck that a little bit and say, let's embrace the human rawness of it and let's not let it be perfect. Like, I don't mind a little bump on the dolly, because in the history of cinema and the history of filmmaking, there have been more bumpy dolly moves than there haven't been. So, and none of us care because the emotion like moves past it. So I think I'm just a huge advocate for embracing humanity, especially in all the computer driven AI kind of like conversation. I'm like, the way to differentiate, the way to make yourself unique is happy accidents. It's embracing the thing there, if that makes sense.
John, how difficult would it be for you to know that you've created a bumpy dolly?
Well,
as a gaffer, I don't think he's going to have a big problem with it.
I do not care. Yeah. But I share the same sentiment. I think oftentimes, and a lot of the people that I came up with that were older than me when I was learning were too focused on some of the small things and not really focused on the right things within a frame, or even within the crew, like you get too focused in on certain things. And so I think as someone who has perfectionist tendencies, like I want things to be done in a very orderly, efficient way and, neat and nice and like take care with everything I do. That's not a bad thing. I think that's a great thing to practice, especially as a technician or just in life. But the flip side of that coin is to go, it's okay that things didn't work out exactly the way you wanted it to, because that's life. Once you can start to embrace some of those imperfect things in your life and go, my least favorite thing to do, and Kirby, I feel like has always been good about this. He doesn't do this, but I have DPs I work with that will vent afterwards and go, if we only had this and that, if we just could have had these things, if we just could have done this way. And they're so disappointed because, we just didn't have everything we needed to pull off whatever it was, or something wasn't right. I think Kirby's always been good about embracing the imperfections and being okay with them, because that is what makes us human. We're not trying to make a perfect image. We're trying to convey an emotion, and emotions are often imperfect, and there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of area for interpretation. There's just all these things that exist within us. So to try to strive for perfection, I think you do disconnect from the audience a bit if all you think about is perfection.
And I think what's interesting, Champ, is like, I've been thinking about this a lot over the past year, is like no one except for the people that were on set, but no one will ever know those limitations at the end of the day, right? Like no one's watching There Will Be Blood and they're like, man, that was a little bumpy. I wish that wasn't so bumpy. That Dolly's just a little too, like,
No.
they're caught up in so much. And so even if on the day they had that conversation and someone was like, I think it's fine, they're, you know what I mean? Like we get so caught up in like, oh, I wish, I mean, like I did a movie in March out in West Texas, and I was speaking with the directors the other day, and they were like, yeah, you know, we wish we could have had one or two shots, but we don't, and it's fine, and it works. And it's like, that's like, no one will ever know what could have been. I think I listen to a couple of movie podcasts, and they talk about like cut scenes and deleted scenes and different revisions of the script. And it's like, oh, that's interesting, but like, it doesn't gain you anything by complaining.
No.
You just, and no one will ever know. You're the only person that like lets that burn in you. So you might as well just toss it away because it doesn't do any good.
I'm hearing from both of you this like almost like acceptance of things a little 40s. Bit. Well, that's what I was going to ask is how much, I mean, both of you started in this industry, I'm assuming before you were married, before you had children, you know, like how has life experiences, growth, maturing, maybe feeling like your body is falling apart if you're anything like me, like how has aging and living really impacted your work? Man, that's like too big of a question probably, but
it has.
It certainly has.
Next.
I think it gives you a lot of perspective on what is important. And I think for me, work is not the most important thing in my life. What I make on set is not the most important thing in my life. How I treat people is really important. You know, my interactions on a set is super important to me. I, of course, want to do good work. You know, I want to do work that is honorable, that's done well, and strive to be the best. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there's some perspective when you bring other people into your life, you know, a spouse or children, like you get some perspective on, man, like there's a lot more important things in my life. I don't think I'll be in, you know, my old age wishing I would have done something different at work technically. I will have some regrets, but they won't be that, you know. If I could have just set that, you know, light 6 inches over and a foot higher, I really would have. I would feel better now.
I would have gotten that dang award.
It's just not that important.
No, yeah, he's right. I mean, I think like my experience is similar, but maybe a little more extreme. Like I think when I got in this business in my early 20s, it saved me. I was in a really bad place, and it gave me a purpose. And I was completely bought in. Like it was everything. It was everything. Like it was the only thing I cared about. And then I met my wife, and then we had our children, and it took me a little bit, but then I realized my work-life balance was stupid and I needed to flip-flop it. And I did. And I agree with John. Like no one's going to be at the end of their days being like, I just wish I'd been at work a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. You know, like I find that there's so much experience. I mean, the best two things I ever will make, ever, artistically or creatively, are our children. And so, like, all of this is fun, and it's great that someone has decided to pay me to do this for work. Not currently, I am available. But it just changes. Like, I think that you do embrace a lot of different stuff. The experiences allow you. I think one of the biggest things in Champo, I think you might agree with me, is your patience grows exponentially. You grow as a leader. I think you get to have more patience and you're more thoughtful. I think if you're emotionally, intelligent and like you're kind of like you're grounded, I think it can really make you a stronger. When it's weird, it's it makes you a stronger creative, yet a part of you doesn't have, at least for me, like it makes me a strong creative to be a father and a husband, yet my drive to work, like, oh, I gotta, like I do want to provide for my family, but like this thing to be like, oh, I'm always working is definitely not. It's funny. It's like I do want to work and support my family, but I'm not trying to like never be home. In fact, I'm trying to be home as much as possible. And I am actively trying to come home at all times. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, look, like this is a job and it's fun. And look at the crazy stuff that we get to do, the toys we get to play with. But I just want to go home. I just want to go home to my family.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So John and I did a couple jobs in August of 2025. And I think the first day was like 8 hours on a 12 hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second day was like, the second job was 10 on a 12.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, all right, we're good. We're done. Because we just should go home. And I think that's, I have a big problem with rewarding efficiency and excellence with more work and no extra pay. Like that's an insane. Our industry is a very rare one where it's like, oh my gosh, you've done so well today. No, don't clock out. You still got 5 hours, so we're gonna do something.
Yeah,
because we got you here, and it's just like that. Seemingly, and I'm speaking on only one side of the camp here, but it just doesn't seem like a lot of industries reward excellence with more work.
Yeah. I think the other thing with like family specifically is it shows you your limits. Like as a man, like you hit those limits pretty early on with young children and work and a wife and trying to balance all the things in your life. And you either just like collapse under that, or you learn how to deal with those limitations and be okay with having limitations, which translates into work. There's nothing worse than a DP or a gaffer, anyone who's in charge of anything on set, feeling like they don't have limits, feeling like there's no limitations to what you can do, because it just gets silly, and everybody ends up disappointed at the end of the day. So I think it helps. I think early on in my career, before kids, I think I would have just been a little more naive with limits that we have. But once you kind of learn limits as a person, it translates to work, and you can be a lot smarter with your time and how to budget your time, how to budget your money and your equipment and all the things. So,
yeah, I've got my oldest. I have 4 kids. My oldest are graduating high school this year, and I have learned that in marriage, my wife is constantly making me a better version of myself, and I feel like I didn't really see that as a parent until I got into teenagers, like having teenage children. They, although it feels a lot more abrasive than the way my wife has done it, are they're doing the same thing. They're teaching me to be a better version of myself, usually through trial and error on my part. And so, but I think it's a beautiful thing. As we age, we learn to reflect and look at those struggles in family and the joys in family. And it translates to everything else in our lives. Like we're able, like you said earlier, Sean, you can be more patient with other people because you've sort of learned that with your own family. And I think it just shines lights on our own shortcomings, which hopefully allows us to extend grace to other people who also have shortcomings.
yeah.
But it's cool. It's cool to hear both of you talk about set life and the sort of lessons that you've learned and are applying, and it feels like it translates to life in general. It's sort of beautiful.
Yeah, I honestly say I would think that a long time ago, the way that you just put it is how I would say it. Like it went from set to home. But I actually think now it's the opposite. I think that my home life is reflected at work more than vice versa. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I think it's the way I get to be at home is the true kind of maybe a truer version of me. And so that gets reflected on set where I get to be. Yeah, I'm just honestly, and Champo probably can say this. I mean, I think I'm a lot more chill.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, like I think that there's I don't want to say effortlessness because that sounds like superior, but I think that there is a bit of effortlessness that comes with aging, that you have more muscle memory, you have more experience, but yeah, also as a father, and a husband, like your balance, the way you balance things, you're better at it. You've grown as a human, so you're going to be more patient. I mean, like balancing kids' schedules and family schedules and, like budgets, like, yeah, we do that here. And it's just like, okay, like, I think it reflects more to me at work instead of vice versa.
Yeah. Well, I wish both of you more and more joys and success in your families. First and foremost, let work be work, and have fun with those kids and have fun with your spouses. I think that's like you've said, and I'm echoing. That is most important.
For
So
sure.
that's cool. All right, so I do want to ask, and I want to be respectful of our time. I really want to keep this as close to an hour as I can, for your sake. But I want to know favorite project that the two of you have worked on. Is there like maybe a favorite moment in a project, or was it more of a project and maybe a little bit to that? And obviously you don't have to agree on this. We can fight it out right here. So what would you say is one of your favorite projects y'all have worked on before?
And the roles that we currently have.
It can be anything. I set no boundaries to this. So I'm making it up as I go anyway. So if you can't tell.
What do you think?
I
What do you
mean,
think, John?
I would say probably one of our first projects we did when Kirby kind of made the transition from a key grip into a direct photography was we got the opportunity to travel in different parts of the world together and
Yeah.
shoot in some of the most beautiful remote places in the world and some of the most crowded, crazy cities in the world, all in one project. It spanned over a summer. We were gone for a few weeks at a time. That'd probably be my favorite one. It was for the University of Florida, and it was like this video. I don't spare you all the details because it's not that exciting. But the places we went and the things we were able to get were incredible. We were in Africa, in Rwanda for maybe 10 days. We were in the north west corner of Australia in this really remote surfing town for a week. We were in Tokyo for a little over a week. It was just incredible, to get to see the world. I think it informed a lot of how we do work now together. It just has like
I would agree.
this minimalistic approach to what we do and our certain specific taste of what you can actually get with very little if you film in beautiful places with the right time of day and the right equipment. Like the stuff you can get is incredible, and it also just gave us these life experiences to pull from. You're not just shooting in a corporate office, and just shooting this thing all the time, but you're able to pull from these unique experiences you've had together to kind of shape and form what you're going to do next.
How difficult was it to travel like that with gaffing and grip equipment?
I think we had 12 cases,
Yeah.
and our producer did a carnet, so it's basically just like a fancy visa for gear.
Yeah.
So it becomes you get to get a little VIP treatment when you're going through customs. But we really didn't have that many like cases. Like, to be honest, it was I would agree with John. Like, that one was pretty incredible, from the life experience, from seeing stuff. I mean, we have crazy stories. It was much like being on a feature where you're just in the trenches with each other. And I think Champo nails it on the head. I think for me, that's kind of, I feel like I chase those frames sometimes, man. Like just those places and like how we did it. Like there was such a, it was this thing of the job we had done before was a very large project that was like, there was no no's. Like, oh, can we have 5 and 5 in G&E? They're like, yeah, sounds great. Like, can we get 18Ks? Yeah, well, how many do you need? And you're like, whoa, this is crazy. And then the next job, so you have this job that feels very high end, very Hollywood, right? A lot of stuff, and you're making like beautiful images with all the proper gear. And then the next job was just me and John and I think 2 or 3 lights. And I think that both of those projects look incredible still to this day. And I think that project where we traveled around, there are times when I'm going onto a job and I'm like, I'm trying to get back to that, right? Like I know we'll have people and we'll have all this stuff, but like, oh my gosh, that house in Rwanda, the light there is like a thing that I chase all the time. So it's interesting, like when you have a big project, big budget, and they're like, oh, what do you need? And you're like, what's the time of day and what's the location look like? I don't need a lot. You know, we can use those assets elsewhere. So I think that one, John, I was going to say potentially Woodlawn, mainly because we didn't have a lot of responsibility. So we could just like goof around. Yeah. But that, yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So in 15 years that y'all sort of worked alongside each other, you know, here and there. And it sounds like you described it at one point, Sean, as in the trenches. That seems to be sort of a depiction of set life at times.
On low budget movies, it is in the you are in World War I trench warfare. You are fighting for your life every day.
Yeah. So the question I have is, in those moments, tensions can arise, conflict can arise. And I would imagine if you're anything like some of my friends, friends can have conflict at times, especially if they're working closely, and just disagreements. Have you had those kind of moments, and how has your friendship and the work sort of persevered through those conflicts?
We've had, I think there's the only, I mean, yes, of course, like we're 2 different human beings. We're going to like disagree on stuff.
Right.
I think though, because of who we are as people and also just being able to not have a huge problem with confrontation, we've talked out things pretty well. I feel like it has made us better friends. There was only one time that I can think of on set where it was like a thing, and I don't know if you remember this. I'm sure you know this. You remember this, John. We were in we were not Cannon Beach, but we were out at Oceanside in Oregon, and the tide was rising. This is pre-COVID when we went to Portland in like February of 2020, before the world changed.
Yeah.
And I had wanted. There was this beautiful. I'm gonna set the stage. And John was correct in why he did this. So this is not an indictment. This is an indictment on my pride. There was this super cool cave tunnel on the side of this rock in the Pacific Northwest on the beach. And like, if you look through it, it felt like you're going like it's Narnia. Like it felt very like going to another realm. And I was like, oh my God, let's put a techno crane in here. And we had enough money to get one, but it was going to cost so much. It was going to cost so much time to push it to the cave. And then we measured the cave and it was too narrow for the smallest techno we could get. So then we decided, we'll get a Steadicam to do like a really cool, smooth push through. So then the key grip Shelby, she built like a a walkway basically for the Steadicam op, so he could have a smooth transition to do the shot. And when we had scouted it, the tide was way the heck down the shore. We were fine. So anyway, we start shooting it, and it is just tumultuous, and it looks incredible. And oftentimes, on jobs you do more than one take, and so we're kind of getting through it, and the tide starts rising. And Champo, and we're not lighting it. I mean, it's already lit. It's a tube of light. It's beautiful. Champo is kind of monitoring it and kind of keeping his eye on it. And it's getting higher because the time of year we're there's king tides, which are like super tides that I don't know about. And it's like, oh, when it's coming, you're screwed. And I was like, John was like, I remember we're shooting, I'm watching the monitor, and Champo was like, hey, we got to go. The tide's coming in. We got to get out of here. And I was like, no. I said no. And there's probably not many times in my life that I've just been like, no, we're not done yet. And I think we did it like 2 more times. He's like, we got to go. And I was like, oh, fine. And we talked about it later, but as we got out, he was right. That tide was coming, and it was a cooking. And I know that it was like, I pushed back on it there. And he was like, dude, we have got to leave now. Like, the tide is coming in. We're going to get caught. And I was like, we're fine. Or something like that. Some sort of exchange.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I was like, oh my God, you're right. This is kind of crazy. So that would be the only time. But then we talked it out. And
Yeah. There were these things called, since I didn't light anything, I was talking to the local people on the beach, and they were like, yeah, there's these king tides, it'll come all the way in. I was like, oh yeah, I wonder why there was like water in the floor of the cave.
Yeah, why is all this driftwood in here?
Of water and wood in it, I'm like, huh. And then one guy was like, yeah, you got to watch out for those sneaker waves. And I was like, what's a sneaker wave? He's like, oh yeah, when the tide's coming in, a big wave will come and just like fill that cave up with water. I was like, oh my gosh.
The one that we've got a huge crew in right now.
Yeah, we got to get out of there. So I think we left that wood and all that. We just bailed.
So we did. COVID happened, and then I got an opportunity in August of that same year. So 6 months. I had an opportunity in August to go back up to Portland to shoot something else, and I was like, guys, we should use this cave again. But
cool. Watch out.
Well, I was like, I know about this. We get there. There is not a splinter of wood in that cave. It is gone. Like we made a 4x8 or 4x12, like parallel almost, and it was.
Yeah.
Wow. Could have been the whole crew.
Could have, but it wasn't.
But we were good.
Thanks to John for saving everyone's life.
Thank you, John. My children, thank you that their father's still around.
There's these weird times on set, and the gaffer is not like held responsible for safety necessarily on set, but there are certain things you have to monitor as a gaffer, like lightning and all that kind of stuff. And there's times when you have to like shut set down because of lightning or different unsafe things. And I think early in my career, I was just so timid to do that because you don't want to like be the person that cries wolf and stop work for everybody. But I was on a movie a few months ago, and there was some lightning getting fairly close to us. And there's like rules as to how close it is, and you got to stop work and all that kind of stuff. And, I was like, it didn't seem like it was moving towards us, but, there was just these little stray lightning strikes happening close. And at some point I just was like, there was one that hit like 3 miles, 4 miles from where we were. And I was like, guys, we have to stop. And so, it was clear skies where we were, but there was this weird, little lightning storm. So we went inside, stopped down for half an hour. And during that half an hour, lightning struck the house next door to where we were all set up.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. And so it was just like a good reminder of like, these rules are in place for a reason. You know, it may not look like the storm's headed your way. Chances are it probably won't happen, and I think we all tend to lean, especially if you're trying to make your day and trying to get something amazing. Like, you hate to be the one to be like, sorry guys, but there's a reason.
Yeah. All right, so I want to sort of wrap this up. We're just at 1 hour now, but I want to wrap it up with one final question. I know we didn't talk near as much. I mean, I could talk with y'all all day. I feel like, and I imagine the stories y'all could tell could be incredible. So we just got to do this again at some point. We'll do this like a year from now. Maybe we'll reconnect again. But I want to ask, like, being on set and building relationships like the two of you have, where you've got somebody you can trust, somebody that you respect, somebody that respects you. How important is it, and how would you encourage others to be able to develop these kind of long-standing partnerships and friendships on set? How can they ensure that they can be that type of person, but also find that type of person? Is this just?
Yeah.
Am I asking? Am I asking too big of questions?
No.
I mean, like, you're not guaranteed in this life to find someone that you work with that you can flow with. It is definitely rare. I think that the best way to do it is to get in to do the work. Maybe I think that you find your flow with friends, and when you find, I think that we were very fortunate to have found each other, and we just had similar tastes. We agreed with the same things. We got peeled on the same things. So I think it's just about like, the first time I worked with John, I was a dollar grip on a terrible movie, and he was the best boy, and he hired me based on a recommendation. And so no one would have thought from that we'd be here. I didn't, and so maybe it's about just like being a good person and having a good attitude. Even though maybe I don't think I did when I met John, but like at least being funny. I was funny.
He was
I think
gracious.
I'm still funny. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just about like, don't be afraid. Like, I think for any person who wants to get in this business, if your end goal is somewhere where we're at, I think I would strongly suggest that this business is a marathon and not a sprint. And though you are in your mid-20s and you're not in charge yet, Steven Spielberg and the others like him that started out so young are an exception and not the rule. That does not also mean that you're never going to make it. Oftentimes, you just need to put your head down and do the work. Get on set. If you find people that you flow with, try to continue that.
Yeah.
Stay in touch. Stay together. Become friends. Like, I think that there is nothing wrong with taking your time. And I think the world tells you that's not true. But I think that in my experience, though it was not a formal way of getting about to the role that I'm at, I didn't go to school for this or anything like that. But I do think that there's an invaluable lesson that comes from doing it as a trade, and then finding other people alongside you that feel that way as well, right? Because like John, I did not meet John as a boss. I met John as an equal. In fact, John was my boss. And I think that the ability to flow and to be like, hey, we are equals in this job. I think that's a great way to set it up, where if you want to find those people that you can be in the trenches with, that you can like grow a professional working relationship with and friendship, I think it is just about like seeing the equality of each other and working together on stuff.
No.
Yeah.
I've always heard said that be the kind of person that you want to find, or befriend. You got to be that person in order to sort of draw that person to some degree. And it sounds like the two of you, although Sean, you're saying you may have not started off that way, but ultimately y'all both have been that friend for each other. Y'all have been that professional, that reliable, that consistent sort of partnership for the other. So it sort of, you've sort of created the synergy on each side.
Yeah, the friendship aspect of it does stand out, right? Like what you're describing, Brian, is like, how can you work with your friends? That's part of this. It's like, but we all have friends who we don't want to work with because maybe we don't jive with the way we work and how we work. So I think it is rare to find someone that you are close with. And, the reality is the older you get, I think the harder it is to make close friends, because you just kind of get a little more jaded with friendships that go sour and all these different things happen in your life where you just like, maybe it's not worth it as much. So while you are young, I would like suggest to younger people, like obviously treat everyone the same, treat people with kindness, be a good human to be around. No matter if you're their boss or you're treating your boss that way, however it falls within that work relationship. But if you find someone that you gel with and you can be friends with, one of the things I think that Kirby and I shared early in our career was when we started traveling so much together, we just like saw each other's lives and were able to like talk with one another about what was happening in our own life and be vulnerable with each other about things we're struggling with, things we're dealing with, our aspirations, maybe the aspirations that weren't being met, like all those things kind of came out early in our friendship. And so I think that drove us closer as friends. But, the flip side of that is we also like kind of share the same outlook on work and the kind of work we want to be a part of and the kind of work we want to do. So if you find someone that kind of ticks those boxes where you're like, hey, I could actually be friends with this person and I like their work. I like the way they work. I like the way they're approaching their work. Then yeah, do everything you can to continue to work with that person. I think we just live in a world where new is always more attractive than old. And so people have a tendency to just want to work with somebody new or want to try somebody different, whether it's a director to a director of photography or director of photography to gaffer. And I understand that, to an extent. I'm a gaffer for hire, so I'm down with people wanting to hire me that maybe want to try something different. But when you find somebody that you do gel with, don't shy away from that, thinking that's somehow holding you back. Work together and grow together.
I would agree. Yeah. And I think like what John mentioned earlier, which I I wouldn't say that I forgot. It's just like there was a period of time where, Champo and I, we were driving like grip trucks all over the Southeast together. Like, oh, hey, we got a 12-hour drive to Texas. So you got to sit in the box with someone for 12 hours. So you better, and then you're spending a week with that person at the same hotel, right? So
you're either going to hate them or love them by the end of it.
Exactly. You're going to see them at the lobby. You're going to see them at dinner. Like, so you learn pretty fast. Like, oh, I sure hope that these people are cool. And we did. I mean, we had a lot of time together that isn't on set, right? That's none of that set. Like, it's still work, but it's like, we're going to and from. And that's really, I'd say we probably had more conversations doing that than we ever did on set. Like on set, we're just like making Nacho Libre jokes.
All right. So last thing, and let me ask you before I go into this, are the two of you okay on time? If I need to wrap right now, we can, but I have one last thing that I'd like to get the two of you to sort of speak about each other. And this we will officially wrap on. I want you to tell me what do you hope for the other at this point? You've worked together. Y'all obviously have a lot of love and respect for each other. You've had those hard conversations about or those intimate conversations about aspirations and hopes and dreams and that kind of stuff. But and both of you are successful, I would say, from my perspective, in industry as well as outside of work. But what do you hope for each other from this point forward?
I hope that we make enough money to be happy, and that we have enough time to see our families and each other. And I hope that we don't go bankrupt.
I like it. Let's, he's like, seriously, really?
Seriously. No, I mean, I hope that we get to work on more stuff together. I hope that as our kids grow older, that we have more availability to do longer stuff together. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess for Kirby specifically, like, and I think this has obviously started to happen in the last several years, but, Kirby doesn't live in Birmingham anymore. He's in Nashville. Right. And I think it was, I think most people didn't really recognize when he was in Birmingham, the talent that he had, that he was just very unique in his perspective on life and how he approaches work and how he approaches his art. And I would just hope that more people recognize it, because I work with a ton of DPs. Like, I don't even know half the guys I work with at all. So I have seen some really talented guys and girls that I've worked with that are great, and I've seen some that aren't. And Kirby just has such a unique perspective on things and a unique vision for how he does his art. And so I would just hope people recognize that and see that.
Agreed.
Yeah, it would be great.
And if people want to hire Sean Patrick Kirby, please follow the link below.
Yeah. No. I mean, thank you, John. That's very kind. I hope that too. I hope that I feel the same way. Like, at the end of the day, like, I hope that, I think in the same respect, I would say John is a very special part of the Birmingham film community. And I think that most people know that. I think that they are lucky to have someone who has such a breadth of experience, personally and also professionally. And who's not afraid. And I think that I have been thinking a lot about fear this year. Like, when you're afraid at work of this light is too big or this thing is whatever, like, I think in our business, that fear of that thing, I mean, it's okay to fear like death and, the normal big capital F fear stuff. But I think, like, fear really is that kind of quote from Dune, like, it is the mind killer. Like, and John is someone who doesn't really fear the challenge when someone puts it to him. And he also doesn't fear the ramifications of him saying no. At least, like, from what I can gather, like, it's just like, and this is why. And I think that that's experience and also who he is as a person. And so, like, I think, like, I would hope that people in Birmingham realize, like, they have a very, very talented gaffer that I would put him up for every feature that I have been offered. I have reached out to him. And one day it will make sense when it's a yes. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of what I would also just cherry on top for him.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank both of you for taking the time to talk with me today. I really, I admire the work, but more than that, I think I admire the people that both of you are, and the reputation, not just professionally, but even that personal reputation that I continue to hear over and over from people about the two of you. The friendship is sort of encouraging, and I'll use the word sweet in some ways. Like, it's really neat. It's a beautiful thing that the two of you have been able to have that friendship. And I know there's other people that probably could have been a part of this same conversation. I see y'all work with people like Cedar all the time. I'm sure there's other people that oftentimes interact with the two of you on set, maybe share jobs and that kind of stuff. So I know that there's more, but it's been really neat to just from a viewer's perspective, see the two of you work together and sort of continue that friendship. And I look forward to continuing to see that and watch the two families sort of grow and but the friendship grow as well. So thank you, seriously.
Yeah, man.
Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. It was a fun one.